Well, we're live for yet another episode of What's Up World Cup, and we've all made it just about in time. Hello, guys. Not the greatest of days in that कि बस एक ही game था and result wise पता नहीं क्या बोलना. But anyways, Jeet, Pramod, how are you both doing, brother? एक start कर सको, Jeet. You can go.
Okay.
Good, yeah. I mean, of course, no games there, but it's rather important हम लोग के लिए second वाला था in terms of watching and the kind of context it had. But yeah, good game. Slightly disappointed with the result of the second game because I wanted this to be, in favor of New Zealand so that we can have the excitement right in the last game so that we find out who are the two teams that end up qualifying. But ended up being a one-sided encounter in favor of the West Indies, surprisingly.
Of course, yeah. I mean, India USA था, but I'm just trying to set the precedent here कि boss वो तो हम consider करना नहीं चाह रहे. But anyways, Pramod, in terms of how the West Indies New Zealand game panned out, I mean, not exactly expected, so to say, because you always look at the Kiwis and the first thing that comes to mind is, bhai, jo bhi ho, World Cup ke time pe, come the big tournaments, they usually do punch above their weight.
Yeah, that's been the notion over the last 2-3 World Cups. I think those people who thought that are very happy right now that they have just probably met their expectations in terms of not punching above their weight. But as Jeet said, this was one group that we wanted sort of to be a little more open. इसके अलावा सिर्फ वो South Africa, Netherlands, Bangladesh वाला group बचा है, whichever that is. So yeah, in that context, it is disappointing in a way to see West Indies win because now New Zealand are like 1 foot, unless PNG pull off a miracle. They are more or less out of the competition, which is very disappointing. And I think they have only themselves to blame for the way they've played across the last 2 games.
That's for sure. I mean, one can always hope for a PNG miracle. I'm not sort of going to count that out. But even then, just for the sake of the tournament, I'd also love to see Afghanistan make it through to the Super 8s because they also sort of are, deserved contenders for the World Cup. So you cannot sort of count them out there. Vasant, of course, going on to say, because of the seedings, I don't get my predictions right, or else I had India, Australia, West Indies, and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, 3 of them, India, Australia, and Afghanistan, will be a part of the same group should they qualify through to the Super 8s. But fair enough. Vasant also going on to say, I saw this coming from New Zealand. Not a great squad. They look very undercooked. Hindsight, the thing is, right now, New Zealand, I don't think New Zealand have ever entered a tournament looking very good. Ki boss, ये स्क्वाड देख के लगता है भाई ये तो टूर्नामेंट जीत के रहेंगे but they've always come up with ways to to win games and they've had those players who sort of, like I said earlier, punch above their weight. That's usually how people look at New Zealand. Probably the sum is greater. I mean, yeah, the sum is greater than the individual parts, but not to be the case this time around. 2 not so great wins, not so great games, and unfortunately they also ended up playing 2 of the strongest teams in their group first up. Probably if the scheduling had been a bit in their favor, had they, probably played the likes of Uganda and PNG first up and then played these 2 sides later, maybe they could have eked out another win here or there. Not to be the case this time around. Anyways, we'll sort of get into the game and what happened, what didn't happen, and all of that in the first segment of the episode that we call, what do we call it? About last night. Yep, about last night it is. And of course, I'm not even sure if this thing went through or not, but hopefully it has. And I'm not, am I audible by the way? I'm not sure if, yep, I am. All right. Let's hope the internet does not give up on me this time around, but let's have the match summary out first. New Zealand versus West Indies. The game was coming live from Trinidad, of course, the Brian Lara Stadium in Trinidad. New Zealand won the toss, just like last time around, opted to field first, and they had West Indies on the mat in all fairness. The hosts were down and out, 80-7. It seemed like boss New Zealand can potentially even look for a net run rate boost by bundling them out quickly and then expecting the likes of Finn Allen to sort of go berserk up top. Sherfy and Rutherford probably saved the best for the best side in the group, so to say, the best opponents in the group. A fantastic counter-attacking knock from him at 39 ball 68, single-handedly ensured that West Indies got to a respectable total of 149 at the end of 20 overs. Not to forget 37 runs that he scored in the last 2 overs. That clearly proved to be the point of difference between the 2 sides. And that was a fantastic knock from him. Not to forget, of course, Trent Bolt, Tim Southee, Lockie Ferguson, all 3 of them chipping in with wickets for the Kiwis. That Trent Bolt in particular was really good with the way he bowled. And again, it was very clear that the Kiwis had identified what lengths to bowl early on, and they sort of stuck to it, much to West Indies' dislike. In reply, of course, the Kiwis never really got going. Ended the power play at 36 for 1. And Finn Allen, although got a few bounties here and there, ended up dotting a bit too much and then lost his wicket. And then that middle order hasn't really had a lot of game time. There's Kane Williamson, who got out early. Daz Mitchell did not have the greatest of IPLs, got out quickly. Then, of course, Glenn Phillips was the only saving grace there, but unfortunately, there's only so much one batter could do. Probably if one of Jimmy Neesham, any of them had stayed on, even Mitch Santner for that matter, they could have probably, made a case for themselves. Not to be the case this time around, though. Jeet, let's start with you in terms of how the Kiwis batted. Let's start with that because that's where they lost the game. Their bowlers, for most part, got the job right. Unfortunately for Kane Williamson, the move to front load his bowlers backfired big time, but you can't put that against him. The move was right. It was to sort of be aggressive, try and get those wickets. Didn't work for them, but you wanted their batters to sort of put their hands up.
Yeah, yet again, it showed how undercooked and underprepared the entire lineup was in terms of the amount of game time they had before coming into this particular tournament. The only batter who had any significant amount of game time being spent was Daz Mitchell, but he also didn't have the best of the times in the IPL with pretty much every knock being really, really bad. And you could see that he was struggling for momentum, he was struggling for timing, which he really relies on, those shots down the ground. So he was the only guy who had some kind of game time coming into this tournament. But in both the games, even he has flattered to receive. He's been really, really poor walking in a situation where you'd want him to actually carry on the momentum or build a kind of partnership. But he's just come out defending and not been able to rotate the strike, let alone find boundaries. So he's been very, very disappointing. Besides that, it's not really surprising with the likes of, say, Devin Conway, who's been out injured for a very, very long time. So there was not much to expect from him. And that kind of struggle or that kind of form really continued for him. The same thing for Kane Williamson and the other batters as well. Finn Allen, the only guy who's really aggressive in probably that top 4 or top 5, also kind of struggled to get going. This game, there were a few good signs, but that's pretty much it. So everything had to eventually come down to Glenn Phillips down the order. But he himself has been warming the benches for SRH, so there wasn't much to even expect from him. But a good knock from him today. I can't quite blame him for the kind of knock he played and the partners that he was losing from the other end. But there was a lot remaining to be done. But of course, like I mentioned, the one guy that I'm really disappointed with is indeed Daz Mitchell. And the reason why I say that is because just 1 year ago, I watched him in the T20 Blast, and this guy was smashing it with the bat and with the ball. And it was not only these kind of match-winning performances that he was putting, but these kind of performances were on a consistent basis. And that kind of consistency is rare in the T20 Blast as well. So I was very impressed. But since then, he has been very, very disappointing in every tournament that he has played, including those few games in the Super Smash as well. So really disappointed with him. And I hope that New Zealand start looking beyond him now going forward.
All right, a bit harsh there, but sure, you can understand where Jeet was coming from because he clearly has not been able to put up the kind of performances that was expected off of him. Batting in the middle order, he had a very crucial role to play there. Pramod, again, in terms of the Kiwi batting, Conway hasn't been in the greatest of form, neither has Mitchell. Williamson himself hasn't had a lot of game time, neither has Glenn Phillips. जब इतना सब चल रहा है वहाँ पे, and then add to the fact that they did not play any warm-up games. For whatever reason, sure, there were logistical constraints and all of that, but all of that has definitely played a role here.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in the first game, you saw what happened with them being very scratchy in the field and letting Afghanistan off the hook. I know more than once or twice. Yeah, and secondly, Rachin Ravindra coming in was probably the right move today. But then what happens that he batted at 3 and that pushed Williamson down to 4. Which is probably not an ideal sort of scenario. If Rachin Ravindra has to play, he has to open the innings. One of Conway or Finn Allen should have missed out if you want to accommodate him. And if you do that, I think you can get someone like a Mark Chapman also in the middle order who could have probably done a little bit better, had a little more stability to the team. So I think those are little things. But I don't even remember, as Jeet said, these guys have not played together in a while. When was the last time these bunch of 11 players played together in a T20? and that too Williamson batting at 4, and things like that. I mean, it's in a World Cup you can't. That too again a team like West Indies, you can't afford to do that. And they did have West Indies, by the scruff of their neck till about the 18th over of their innings, and then those 2 overs I think proved to be costly in the end. Had that gone for just about 20 or 22 odd, I think New Zealand would have gotten over the line today. So I think that's probably where they sort of fumbled and missed the trick.
For sure, the final 2 overs definitely proved to be costly. But again, to sort of say that that was the only reason would, of course, not be right. And on the other hand, Pramod rightly also spoke about a few changes. One, of course, was Rachin Ravindra coming in. There were 3 changes in total, Jeet. Rachin Ravindra came in, so did Jimmy Neesham, and they also dropped or rested Matt Henry. In hindsight, of course, do you think that Matt Henry sort of acts probably was not needed because he didn't do too badly in the last game, and the surface, at least for the Kiwis, they hardly use any of the spinners. Just 3 overs of spin, 2 from Santner and 1 from Glenn Phillips. Probably a Matt Henry could have been a lot more useful, given that lengths by pacers were something that the West Indies batters could not really put away with these.
No, personally, I didn't mind this particular change because Saudi, at the end of the day, does bring a lot of experience. And Saudi, in the last 5 or 6 years, has changed a lot in the T20 format. You wouldn't really look at Tim Saudi or hear that name and say that, okay, he's going to get bashed because it's T20s. He has evolved over the years and he has added quite a few variations also up his sleeve. And even today, it was a pretty good performance. I don't think he went for more than 18 and took 2 wickets in his 4 overs. So it was a pretty good performance. So I didn't mind that move. I didn't mind either of the moves, to be really, really fair. Even that top order with Rachin Ravindra coming in number 3. So that trio of Devin Conway, Finn Allen, and Rachin Ravindra, they have batted together for the Wellington Firebirds as the top order batters. So I didn't mind that entirely. It's just the lack of game time that has been costing this team dearly. And this change also came after just one game where Bracewell went out, Chapman went out. So you'd probably wonder, why did they even start then? Because after this one game, if you're changing it, then there is something wrong with the initial thought process you had, because you had to resort to plan B so quickly. So that kind of makes me question, because I personally was very surprised to see Jimmy Neesham not even start in the 11 against Afghanistan, because I saw him as the 4th pace option. I wouldn't really rely on Daz Mitchell, and it kind of proved in both the games, because even Neesham was really good in this game, in this 4 overs that he bowled. And Mitchell in this solitary over that he bowled in both games went for 16 and 19 respectively. So it was not a good ploy to start with itself. But all in all, I didn't really mind these changes. I just wish this was the starting 11 in the very first game itself.
That way, again, like Pramod mentioned, Rachin's best spot is probably at the top, opening the innings. At least we saw that in the IPL as well. And given my obvious biases, something I've made no sort of bones about in terms of how I still think Rachin Ravindra has the potential. He sure has the raw skills required. It's all about sort of giving him a bit more time. He's still not right there to sort of represent his side internationally. Even today, if you wanted to play Rachin, the only way was dropping Devin Conway, because Finn Allen is the kind of batter you would want in your 11 given how your middle order is. But dropping Devin Conway means keeping options. Hey, nahi squad mein. From what I understand, Glenn Phillips, if he agrees to keep, is the only backup keeping option they have, right? I don't think they have any other keeping options in the squad. So given that, they could have probably stuck with Michael Bracewell. Personally, I wouldn't have minded them sticking to Michael Bracewell, because that would have also meant the likes of Williamson, Mitchell, and Phillips would sort of play in their preferred positions, number 3, number 4, number 5, respectively. Bracewell at 6 and Neesham at 7. That would have still been a decent enough lineup rather. But again, Pramod, if they are going to sort of make so many changes after the first game, like Jeet mentioned, why didn't they sort of start with this? Like, again, sort of goes on to show the lack of prep, the lack of game time, the lack of warm-up games even playing a role here.
Yeah, that's exactly. They haven't played together, so it makes it difficult to sort of zero in on the right combination. They probably would have thought, to just go according to the conditions on offer on a particular day, and I think that's the only reason they could have considered making a change. I don't think it was about sort of dropping people because they didn't do well in the previous game and things like that. Maybe they read the conditions a little differently, and they decided to sort of go in with those changes. I think with the Ravindra at 3, it sort of increases that batting depth as well. So I think that is something that they probably would have wanted. And in case of Matt Henry being dropped or rested or whatever, maybe they thought there was a little more swing on offer earlier, and I think that's when Tim Southee sort of came in. But actually, in reality, I don't think there was much swing after probably the first couple of overs. So in that aspect, that probably did not pan out the way they probably wanted. But then, yeah, I mean, as Jeet mentioned, plenty of Southee brings in plenty of experience to the team. He's the leading wicket taker. So yeah, the bowlers can't fault them too much for at least the first 18 overs, and can't blame Williamson for bowling everybody out within the 18 overs, given that they had a chance of bowling them out for under 120. But yeah, in terms of sort of changes, and they really don't know what their best combination is. Given that it's been a really long time since this bunch of 11 played together in a series leading up to the World Cup.
And even, sorry, just to continue that point, this top order, like I mentioned, they are experienced of batting together for the Wellington Firebirds. Of course, Finn Allen is now shifted, but this was the top order where Allen and Conley used to open with Ravindra coming in number 3. So this is something that they are used to. It's just that it displaced Kane Williamson to a spot below his preferred position. But Kane Williamson, any which way, has been out of form himself. So I didn't really mind accommodating Ravindra at number 3, where he has batted previously as well. But it just got to a big issue in the middle order where they had two batters in Kane Williamson and Das Mitchell not really firing on all cylinders, not having gears to shift. And even Glenn Phillips, it pushed him down to number 6, which was not really ideal. It was too late for him. Because in the CPL, he used to open, if you remember, and he had done a phenomenal job as an opener for the Jamaica Talabas. So he also could have potentially been an option. And like you mentioned about Devin Conway, if you leave out Devin Conway, who's been out of form, he's been out of game time for a long time, out of action for a long time. They were only left with 2 wicket-keeping options in Glenn Phillips and Finn Allen, both of whom don't keep so frequently. They are part-time wicket-keeping options. So that also was an issue. Although Conway himself is a part-time wicket-keeper, but he still does it a little more regularly. So they had designated that particular role to him. But since he has been not having any game time with the bat, it was a big struggle, and eventually they decided to go ahead with him, and it's not really panning out well for them.
Fair shot, and of course, Finn Allen was obviously over there. Completely missed that. And also, one more thing. Basically, the trade-off was who's going to add more value, Rachin at 3 or Michael Bracewell at 6. Given that Bracewell at 6 would mean the other batters would be playing in their natural positions. That's why, personally, I think that would keep them in better stead than Rachin at 3. But of course, they would have had their own sort of, reasoning behind it. We don't know, of course. But fair point that. And speaking of some of the bowling that, some of the better bowling that Kiwis did, especially given how in the last game they weren't able to pick up a wicket for the first 15 overs. This time around, definitely a much more improved showing there. But the way Kiwis bowled, vis-a-vis the way the West Indies bowlers bowled, there was a very interesting dynamic going on, because Williamson clearly relied on his pacers, 17 overs of pace. Not so much with was the case with West Indies. They bowled 9 overs of spin. Gudakesh Moti, Akil Hossain, both of them wreaking havoc. And also, they brought in an over of Roshan Chase in the middle. So clearly going on to show they back different strengths. Of course, clearly it also is based on the way that attack is structured. But this pitch map also goes on to show what was important to bowl here. Both spinners and pacers stuck to, bowling lengths. Don't go too full. Of course, we also need to understand that length balls for spinners is always going to be a tad fuller than pace, which is why the difference of 4 to 6 meters is generally considered to be good length for spinners, and 6 to 8 is considered good length for pacers. And if you look at that, Kiwi pacers, 55% of their deliveries being bowled in that good length region, which was fantastic, because that sort of ensured single-handedly because West Indies batters did not either, get the balls in their sort of in their area of the pitch, which means that they could not sort of just go after the ball. And which is why 5 of the 7 wickets that West Indies lost to pace came at this length. It was really good. They targeted those lengths. They identified that these were the lengths to be bowled early on. Importantly, what also helped was the surface was keeping a bit low there, Jeet. Something that even the broadcasters showed, which is why these lengths were that much more harder. They did not know if the ball is going to bounce, was going to sort of stay true to the surface, or just going to skid low. On the other hand, when it came to the spinners of the Windies, of course, 4 wickets for them as well. Let's just have the graphic on once again. Again, tied the batters down completely. 65% of their deliveries coming in that region, getting 3 of their 4 wickets also in that region. Gudakesh Moti, we all knew that he's been in fantastic form. A lot of the chatter has rightly been on Akil Hussain in the last 2 games, but Gudakesh Moti himself has done a fantastic job in the middle overs, Jeet, because you usually think of West Indies, you think of pacers, kaun hai bhai inke paas spinners. The guy's held his hand up and that ball to Mitchell, bro, matlab drift hua andar and then turned just enough to be the outside edge and top of middle.
Well, he is the informed spinner in their side as compared to Roshan Chase or Akil Hussain, and he made a great use of it. But also, what was really smart on the part of Robin Powell or the West Indies management, I don't know if this was pre-decided or not, was that there was heavy dew in the second innings. So what Powell ensured is that he gets those 8 overs out of Akil and Gudakesh very early before that dew starts impacting the grip of the surface or during the release. So that also is very, very smart on Robin's part. So that really went well. Coming to even New Zealand Pacers, so one of the things I observed is that they didn't really go seam up with those hard lengths. They were cutting the ball at the very end. So all those length deliveries and the wickets that they got were basically quick cutters. All the quick cutters were really, really working well, including that one dismissal that Jimmy Neesham was able to get, which was off further length. Even that was scrambled seam. So that is what is working. Whereas what the West Indian Pacers did was go cross seam on similar lengths, and that is what worked for them. So in the second innings, when the West Indian Pacers went cross seam, the ball was staying low occasionally, which is not entirely a factor in the first innings. So it was 2 very different ploys that the Pacers on the 2 sides actually implemented. Both seemed to work. In the second innings, it's very weird that the ball starts staying a lot more lower than it did in the first innings, but that is what was working for them. They identified that really quickly and they were implementing that to really, really good advantage. So good to see those tactics on the part of both the sides.
For sure, the length balls definitely did the trick for the Kiwis. I mean, West Indies batters were only able to score at a strike rate of 58 over there. In all the other lengths, the strike rates were 126, 145, 213 even. Just going on to show how much they struggled in those lengths. We also spoke about how Trinidad would be a much better batting surface, batting wicket compared to the other surfaces we've seen so far, something we spoke about yesterday as well. Since 2023, the average score here has been 171. T20I average score has been 185 historically. So clearly, that way we were expecting a few runs. But again, Pramod, I don't think we're complaining, right? 150 is probably the sweet spot, so to say. Enough runs for you to sort of see a few boundaries being hit and all of that. And just enough in it for the bowlers to sort of come in and change the game by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 170 would have seen West Indies win by like about 50 or 60 runs today. That's not what we wanted. Yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong with the surface at all in this game. It's just that a little too many runs leaked in the death, and when you spoke of those back of length deliveries to the West Indies batters, basically, since there was no swing after a couple of games, so I think we saw Tim Southee getting hit for a couple of boundaries against Pooran, and then when he immediately pulled the length back a bit, he got the results. So I think they learned that quite quickly. And going into the second innings, I think West Indies, of course, would have seen what's happening and altered their plans accordingly. But yeah, the overall good competitive wicket for sure in Trinidad. And I think now that the tournament is slowly moving to the West Indies side of West Indies leg, I think we'll see many more good wickets like this. About 140, 150 at least being scored, and this even the opposition remaining in the hunt for a considerable amount of time. And even if they aren't in the initial like 16, 17, there's always a chance of a comeback, which is what you want to see, I guess, in T20s.
That's definitely what we'll all want to see. So let's hope what happens over there, of course. How will St. Lucia play the India versus Australia game? Is that Ajay bhai एकदम यहाँ पहले राउंड का आधा ही हुआ है और पूरा सुपर 8 के उस तरफ पहुंच गए. Time hai bhai, Ajay bhai, tension mat lo, we'll definitely talk about it. India Australia, if I'm not wrong, is going to happen on the 22nd or 23rd of May. Kafi time hai usme. We'll definitely get to it in due course, of course. There were a couple of comments on, of course. It's almost like Akash ne theka leke rakha hai bhai. जॉनसन चार्ल्स like इसको तो हम लोग छोड़ के ही मतलब इसको निकाल के ही छोड़ेंगे हम लोग. Johnson Charles has been downright bad for so long. I think it's high time for him to be replaced with Shai Hope and Obed McCoy in place of Shepherd. There's no ifs and buts in this. It just has to happen. I don't know इसको क्या है खुन्नस. We'll definitely, of course, speaking of West Indies' batting, Johnson Charles, I understand कि भाई ये साल he's not been as good as he was last year. He's had only two double-digit scores in the 8 T20 as he's played this year. But even then, four double-digit scores in the 10 T20 as he's played this year. Even then, the numbers that he's been able to sort of stack up in 2023 alone deserves a spot, and he's been a part of the West Indies setup for an extended period. I don't think it's that big a lean patch for the Windies management to rethink the strategy. So I don't think any of that is happening. But speaking of West Indies batters, of course, the top performer of the day, no questions asked there. Like Akash mentioned, no ifs and buts. It has to be Mr. Sherfane Rutherford. A fantastic knock, an unbeaten 68 of 39 balls, a knock that included 6 sixes and 2 fours. Wow, then like a fantastic knock there, of course. Make no mistake, we spoke about how earlier they were at 80 for 7, down and out, potentially running the risk of being bundled out for below 80 there. Pramod, a knock that clearly shows that, boss, this guy's a lot more than just a slogger.
Yeah, it is. He came, I think, just around the power play. I think before it ended or just after that. And he's batted through. I think that's what West Indies would have hoped one of their batsmen would do. And that's exactly what happened. That eventually turned out to be the difference between the two sides, I guess, about an extra 20-25 runs that came off his bat. You mentioned Rutherford. You should also mention Gudakesh Mothi as well. 0-1 ball, as important as Jack Leach's one not out, I guess, in that innings. So yeah, I mean, yeah, very. The fact that he batted through was very important, because if he also was dismissed at that time, I mean, I don't think West Indies would have even made it to 100, 110 from there. And then New Zealand could have actually thought of winning it by a big margin. So yeah, that was a terrific innings. Probably one of the best innings we've seen in this World Cup so far. And yeah, hats off to him.
And again, Jeet, it's not like this is the first time we're seeing Rutherford do something like that. Those who follow the CPL, those who even follow the IPL for that matter, he's definitely shown he has the temperament to do well at the highest stage. Importantly, he's one of those overseas pros who can handle spin. Might not necessarily attack it, but can handle himself comfortably. So good to see him come good, right?
It is, and he's somebody that I've followed for a very, very long time. Starting what has happened with him is that in several franchise competitions outside of the CPL, he's found himself in a team where he hasn't got a lot of chances, a lot lesser chances that he is than he has deserved. So there is talent without any doubt. And even another thing that I've observed with the West Indian left-handers. Generally, when you look at a left-hander, their strong zones are towards one particular side, and generally that is the leg side, because that's where they like to slog. But when you look at the West Indian left-handers, be it Nicholas Pooran, Shimron Hetmeyer, Sherfane Rutherford, Chris Gale, or even I'm forgetting a name, but all these, Brian Lara as well for that matter, these guys are excellent through the offside as well. They are equally good through the offside. Evan Lewis as well. So they not only have the ability to smash big sixes through leg side, but they can also hit it over covers, over points. So that is another thing that stands out for me. And Sherfane Rutherford is no different. He can access all the areas with proper cricketing shots and with that Caribbean flair. And I'm just happy that he got a chance, because taking the team from 77 for 7 to 149, that is no mean feat. That is exceptional, because the game was done, dusted. That's what I thought. 77 to 7, the game is done. And I thought this is going to be a huge win for New Zealand. But how this guy turned it around single-handedly was phenomenal to watch.
For sure. And I was just thinking, even in the IPL, he's been a part of 4 franchises: Delhi Capitals, Mumbai Indians, Royal Challengers Bangalore, and of course, Kolkata Knight Riders. Every time he's been picked as a backup batter. In Delhi, it was Colin Ingram. In Mumbai, it was Kieran Pollard. In Bangalore, it was Glenn Maxwell. This time around, Andre Russell. Which is why, unfortunately, like Jeet mentioned, not a lot of opportunities. Fingers crossed the guy gets more opportunities, because he's a lot more than just a finisher here, like gigantic underscore Silk 95 goes on to say. And yeah, of course, Sherfane Rutherford also sort of proving the faith that has been shown in him. They have gone for him ahead of Hetmeyer. So good on them, of course, for being able to do that. Of course, given the numbers, you can't sort of put that against the think tank as well. If I'm not wrong, there was a comment earlier. New Zealand should learn from Sammy and the Windies. They replace the non-performing Hetmeyer with Sherfane and look at the results. Time to move on from Conway and Williamson. It's not that easy is what I would say. You also need to see what the backup options are, who the other options are, whether they are good enough. Also, with West Indies, Hetmeyer himself has never really been that or performed that well for the Windies. So for them, probably it was a lot more straightforward that way. So yeah, fingers crossed. It will sort of, this is the first of many such knocks because he's definitely a batter I'll be rooting for. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how he sort of progresses because make no mistake, now all the games are going to happen in the Windies. The Guyanese will be more than happy to sort of play in his home conditions, play a couple of those games, play a couple of those match-winning knocks for his side. And you never know, West Indies might well and truly be in contention for the third ever T20 World Cup title. So yeah, it'll be very interesting for sure. Anyways, now that's it from this game and what we wanted to talk about. It time for us, of course, to now move on to the second segment where we talk about the ins and outs of social media and what we call What's Trending. Of course, time for What's Trending. And guys, in the comments, don't worry. In due course, we'll of course get to all of your comments. A lot of people getting chatty, trying to talk about West Indies' plans, players, and all of that. We'll definitely take all your comments. You don't need to worry about that. But in terms of What's Trending, yesterday India-USA happened, of course. And then today morning, there was West Indies news. And it's a lot of, a couple of interesting games. I won't say a lot of because there'll be a lot more than that as well. Just tonight, we'll have 3 games. So, yeah. Let's have where is the graphic? And yep, there it is, of course. Firstly, it was India-USA. We saw Saurav Netravalkar did to India, got Rohit and Virat Kohli, of course. Virat Kohli getting out for the golden duck and Vishal going, this is a tweet by Vishal Dharma who says, how much more does this Netravalkar want to achieve, yaar? Bhai, pass mein jaake Tendulkar ka bhi wicket nikalega kya? And hilarious, of course. For those who don't understand Hindi, he's basically said, how much does Netravalkar want to achieve in this life? Will he go back in time and also take Tendulkar's wicket? And it was funny, to be honest, because the guy clearly has been doing the rounds on social media. Everyone's talking about his engineering background and whatnot, but sure, let him have his fame as well, his shorted fame, of course. The second tweet is, of course, about people like us who first have to watch the game till about 12:30 in the night, and then also make sure we are up as early as possible to follow the entire game so that we can talk about it. Indian fans watching West Indies versus New Zealand. आधे घंटे पहले मैं नहा के आया हूँ. नहीं तो मेरी आंखें भी वैसी थी. I'm pretty sure Pramod and Jeet will also agree to that. नींद की तो मतलब like the great Jai Shah did लग चुकी है, and I don't think we're complaining though, right? Are we? Neither of them
Definitely
are.
not.
Yeah. All right, definitely not. Nicely done. Last tweet, of course, was a very interesting stat. Most runs added after the 5th wicket in T20 World Cup. West Indies, who added 119 runs. In case you forgot, they were 31, or rather 30 for 5. And from there, thanks to a fantastic resurrection by Sherfane Rutherford, we were able to add a further 119 runs. So good on them for being able to do that. And a fantastic start going on to show how difficult it was to pull off what they did tonight. Because at the end of the 10th over, 15th over, and even the 20th over mark, so to say, of the first innings, we all felt Kiwis are in pole position to win the game. All they have to ensure is not bottle it. Aaram se khelo, mil jayega. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened for them. Meanwhile, Nikhil says, Sherfane has played the knock of the tournament so far. Last 11 balls, 37 runs, killed the match. One shot in particular, Jeet, you mentioned about how he loves the offside as well. Last over, Mitchell Santner very smartly wasn't bowling it too full, just kept pushing it away from the leg side, also because the leg side was the shortest side of the ground. Wind was also blowing in that direction, so it was that much more against him. Rutherford realized in the first 3 balls, boss, मेरे को तो पैर पे नहीं मिलने वाला है कुछ. I'm not going to get anything in my arc. The guy makes some room for himself and lofts it over extra cover. And what a shot that was. He cleared the boundary there and got his 6 for himself. A fantastic shot. A shot not easy to pull off. So definitely, potentially, not just shot of the tournament. So far, knock of the tournament. And let's hope he is able to come up with more. And we in general get to see more knocks going forward in the tournament. There were a few questions or comments that people wanted to take. One in particular was of Darren Samia. let's take Akash comment. He says Hetmeyer can be considered to play the next game instead of Chase just in the next match if he performs. Then Sami can think about it. He's probably referring to the game against Afghanistan, the last first round game, because now that they've already qualified, they have the time to experiment over there. But Pramod, again, do you see any merit in that, or do you think Chase adds value with the ball, so just stick to him?
Yeah, he certainly does add value with the ball, but I think there's no harm, obviously, since it doesn't matter if you finish first or second in the group, so you're going to be the same sort of seeded group in the next stage. So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I mean, Hetmeyer is not a very average or a bad player. He's a terrific batsman, but the question is, does he doesn't offer much with the ball. Like you saw today, Chase, I think bowled just 1 over, but that was important because at the other end you saw I think it was Shepherd who was going for a lot of runs, so you needed 1 over from him to sort of pull things back to a certain extent. So in that aspect, Chase does add a bit of this, but I'm sure Hetmeyer adds a lot more value in the batting than Chase does. So that's a call the team have to take, but it won't be the worst of ideas now that they're through to have to give Hetmeyer a go.
Jeet, where do you stand? Are you up for the experiment? Because another downside, come to think of it, is they already have Rutherford, Purin, 2 left-handers in that middle order. Do you want 3 left-handers? Would that be a bit of an overkill, especially because Hetmeyer himself, it's not like he's done very well in the IPL or done very well in the Windies Maroon. So is that an experiment that you think is worth taking?
Well, left-handers aren't an overkill if you look at the New Zealand 11s that they've had the 2 games, which have been flooded with left-handed batters. So it's not really about that. It's more about the fact that Chase adds a lot of, variety in terms of being an off-spinner as well, and the only off-spinner on the side. So I don't think that is the one spot that is really going to change. But in terms of game time, I'm not too sure if they need Hetmeyer to get any game time. It's a very, very fixed 11 that they've got, so I don't see why they need to change it right now. The only potential place could be somewhere down the order. I mean, just replace some maybe pacer like Romario Shepherd, but then that's also not ideal because then that leaves you with one lesser pace option. So right now, I think they're doing well, so I don't see any need for them to change. Chase, of course, like I mentioned, he adds the only off-spin variety which would turn out to be really, really handy on these West Indian tracks. So I don't feel it's necessary to really change this.
Maybe Obed McCoy could potentially get a look, probably. That's a good
one
option.
thing.
Push effort. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And again, in case you forgot, Roshan Chase also won the game for Windies with the bat in hand against PNG. So it's not like he can't handle himself with the bat. He himself has done good enough. So yeah, probably a bit unnecessary at this point in time, unless they feel कि boss थोड़ा game time देके रखते हैं in case they sort of sense potential injury concerns or something like that for others. So maybe just to ensure everyone is has gotten some runs under the belt, maybe, but not sure. Akash has insisted that we take this comment of his. Dad and Sami, what a champion on and off the field. A few words on him being charged up, being near the boundary line rather than sitting in there in the dugout like other coaches. Jeet, please shed a thought or two on this because we did have a conversation off air. So yeah.
He's a very charged up coach and somebody who's really good to motivate the team because this is something I've always looked at with Dan Sam. Even as a skipper, he was very, very inspirational with the way he led the side. He was always pumped up. And when the skipper has that energy, it always rubs on to the other players as well. So he's doing the same thing as a coach as well, where he's always animated, where he's always charged up. So it really helps the environment as well to keep going on. The atmosphere is really good. So it's very similar. I mean, of course, Ashish Nehra is also someone like that, but he's not as pumped up. He's kind of a little more annoying than Darren Sammy. But I've always looked at Darren Sammy as somebody that you'd invest as a coach to bring in the energy. Tactically, we always know that he is good because he's played before as well, purely as a captain for his tactics. So he's always had those skills. Now, as a coach also, he's bringing in those same tactics and energy as well. So very good as a coach, as he was a player and a captain.
It was good to see West Indies not sacking Sammy right after they didn't they failed to qualify for the World Cup, the ODI World Cup. So they persisted with him, and that's paying off right now, which is excellent to see.
It's very surprising because Phil Simmons is one name that keeps hopping from one side to the other side. He was with the West Indies, and he went to Ireland, then I believe Afghanistan. Now he's with the PNG. Then again he came back to the West Indies. So he's the one guy who keeps hopping from one team to the other team, and one of the key reasons is the West Indies letting go of him time and again. So it's good they haven't done that with Darren Sammy so far.
Yeah, fingers crossed that the tactical know that Darren Sammy possesses is something that reflects in the Windies sort of playing as well. Because even today, for that matter, the way they sort of ensured ki Akil Hussain continued, and then in the middle overs, Gudakesh Moti. All in all, so far, not too much to complain about in tactics. But they've also been aided by the fact that they are fielding a full strength 11, most of whom are in form. So it's not just about the names on paper, it's the fact that they all are performing. Hardly anyone in the 11, I mean, there are hardly any names in the 11 right now who you would say ki boss, पहले 3 गेम में एक ढंग का performance नहीं दिया. I know Johnson Charles, I know Akash will sort of jump to Johnson Charles, but don't forget he was still the highest run scorer in the last game. He still scored 44, irrespective of the fact that it came in 42 balls. So given that, of course, it won't it won't be too bad, of course. Good job, Jeet. Anyways, time for us to now move on to the third segment of the episode, a segment that involves all you guys in the comment section. Let us see who gets it right this time around in today's Who Am I contest. Of course, it's that time of the day where all you guys get chatty and try to guess who the player is. You guys know the drill, of course. 3 hints to be given, 1 player to be guessed. Let's have yesterday's hints out first. There we go. I was a part of a record-breaking ODI stand that helped my side chase 240 from 105 for 8. That also ended up being the highest ever 9th wicket stand. Second hint is I'm the youngest ever test captain from my nation. And the third hint was I'm the only Wisden cricketer of the year from my nation in the last 10 years. So these were the 3 hints given to you. And the answer, of course, is the Sri Lankan legend, the vintage Anji Ayya, Angelo Matthews, of course. Quite a few of you got the answer right, but of course, the lucky winner this time around is Neural Hacks with Vasant. So congratulations on that. Do get in touch with us on Twitter, and our social media team will do the needful. So that was that from yesterday's giveaway. Let's have today's hints out. There you go. I led my nation to their first ever Under-19 World Cup title. I made my test debut in 2017 and became only the second local player to lead my franchise in the history of my home league. So these are the 3 hints given to you. Again, wait for the live chat to end. Wait for the live stream to end. Do not enter your answers in the live chat here because you won't be eligible. Wait for the live stream to end, and at the end of the live stream, in the main comment section is where you need to key in your answers, and you stand to win a cool 500 rupee Amazon voucher from us. So once again, let's have the hints out. I led my nation to their first ever Under-19 World Cup title. I made my test debut in 2017. I became only the second local player to lead my franchise in the history of my home league. So there you go. The hints have been given. Let's see who gets it right. I know Jeet and Pramod are probably thinking, who could this be? But let us see kaun answer nikalta hai yahan pe. But anyways, now it is time for us to move on to the last segment, a segment that we all, of course, definitely look forward to because it's called Let's Look Ahead. Well, time for us to look ahead. 3 games coming up, and to be honest, I'm looking forward to each of those 3 games. Let's have the graphic out to just show you kya ho raha hai wahan pe. Of course, these are the 3 games at our disposal. Bangladesh taking on Netherlands. That could potentially be a knockout game. Winner goes through sort of the game there. That's coming. That's happening live at 8 p.m. tonight. And then, of course, we've got England taking on Oman, and that's coming at 12:30 a.m. tonight or tomorrow early morning, whichever way you want to look at it. And thirdly, of course, is Afghanistan taking on PNG, and that's happening tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Again, don't forget, all of these games and all of these timings are Indian Standard Time, so you've got to accordingly calibrate it. But gentlemen, Bangladesh, Netherlands, let's start with that tonight, 8 p.m. That's going to be a blockbuster game.
Yeah, sorry, I'll
Start
go first.
Karo, start.
That's the game that I'm actually looking forward to out of the three games that we've got, since these are two sides that are very, very evenly matched, and they are meeting in the West Indies for the first time and not in the USA. So it's going to be different for them as well. You know, it's not going to be those rubbish tracks that they had at the Nassau County. So it's going to be quite different. That's why I'm actually looking forward to it, because this also happens to be a venue where a match hasn't been played for a long, long time. So again, the conditions are unknown, but at least there are some stats to go by at the St. Vincent. So I'm looking forward to that. Of course, I'm more excited about the Dutch Pacers over here, because over here in the Caribbean, I believe with that extra bounce and zip, they might be a lot more, exciting to watch than what we saw at New York because of the drop in pitches. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. But again, I'm not too sure about the conditions over here, since I mentioned how a game hasn't been played for a very, very long time. But that's the one game where the bowling team plays the bowling team, and whichever side bowls well is going to end up winning the game.
Fair point there, and that's exactly what I was confirming. If a game has been played in the World Cup here before, I know this is going to be the first game of T20 World Cup 2024 in St. Vincent. And Pramod by Jeet has said this is probably going to be a clash of the bowling attack, so to say. The better bowling attack or the better bowling performance would end up clinching the victory as well. Agree with that? What are your thoughts and what are you expecting from this game?
Yeah, I agree with Jeet on that. Yeah, I'm expecting a very closely fought game. Like I think both teams in their both games have either lost by a very close margin or they've won by a very close margin. So I think it will be pretty much on similar lines. Except I think you won't have those surfaces like they had in the US here. Yeah, so there's a lot of unknown about this track, about the venue, and things like that. One thing I think what many players have been saying about playing in the Caribbean is the wind, making the best use of the wind over there, bowling to it, setting fields accordingly, and for the batters, again hitting it, with the wind or against taking calculated chances in a way. So from what I understand, I was just going through Logan Van Beek's press conference just ahead of the game. He said that he's expecting sort of a flat wicket for now, but then yeah, even he too has emphasized on the role that the wind will play eventually. So I think that's one area where both teams have to sort of tactically manage their gameplay and things like that. And if anybody is shrewd in their tactics and stuff, it has to be the likes of Ryan Cook and Scott Edwards, and also Ryan Cook and Russell Domingo, who are part of the backroom staff for Netherlands right now, I believe. They've previously coached Bangladesh as well, so they have some sort of a familiarity factor in those terms with what they're up against tonight. So it should be a good contest to say the least. Yeah.
Actually, that's a good thing for both these teams to contend with, because right now they were playing all the games in the USA, so wind was not a huge factor. Now it's a new thing for them altogether. So when they plan it out and with the tactics and everything, with the field placements and how the batters also approach, it's going to be a very new thing for them to contend with, something that they wouldn't have experienced before. At least Bangladesh have played in the West Indies, so they would be a lot more familiar. But the Dutch, I don't really like the last time when they played in the West Indies, so it's going to be something that's going to be very new for them.
It's definitely going to be something that's very new for them, but fingers crossed they can do well over there. Nikhil also going on to say, by this time tomorrow, Afghanistan and USA would have qualified as well. But USA कहाँ से ग्रुप ए का कोई मैच ही नहीं है भाई. मैं इसीलिए जाके फिक्चर्स भी देखा और निखिल is just sort of thinking कि बॉस कल हो जाएगा, आज नहीं, मैं कल कंफर्म करेगा कि हो जाएंगे. But anyways, let's see, because Florida right now seems to be flooding badly. So any game over there is unlikely. Any player rather is very unlikely. Pakistan are scheduled to play Ireland over there. So if that game is a washout, that means USA will qualify through to the Super 8s. I don't think, again, that's something anyone would have predicted before the start of the tournament. So again, we're all here for such results. But in terms of Netherlands, Bangladesh, sure, both of them have very good bowling attacks, and it's the bowlers that have been pulling it through, so to say, so far. But if you have to compare the batting lineups of both sides, I personally think the Dutch batting lineup is probably far more superior compared to the Bangla batters, at least right now, current form ke basis pe. Pramod, let's start with you on that. So how crucial would it be, assuming it turns out to be a flat wicket like Logan Fanti mentioned, how crucial would it be for the likes of Max without different things and all of them?
Yeah, it is important, of course. They are. I mean, as you said, they are a little touch better than what Bangladesh have in their batting. And Bangladesh top order, we've seen last 2 3 years consistently sort of letting the team down, not batting good enough. But yeah, I think from the Dutch point of view, what you can say is, they all those 3 4 5 batters have had some runs under their belt during this tournament. I think some especially I would like to see someone like, as I said, Vikramjeet Singh, a very talented player, but then he's not converted it. And secondly, I would like to see Bas de lead also among some runs in the tournament, because I think he's going to be, if Netherlands are to progress to Super 8 and probably beyond, his form is going to be really pivotal. I think he's probably one player in the side whose bowling skills and batting skills are probably on par. You can't probably make out the difference between the two skills that he has. So that is going to be very important. But yeah, Max O'Dowd did well in the first game. He scored a 50 to take them home, and struggled against Bangladesh and stuff. But yeah, I think Vikramjeet and also Michael Levitt, he was the leading run scorer and scoring runs for fun in the lead up to the tournament, and he's sort of not struggled for runs here. So yeah, at least I think at least 2 or 3 of the top 5, top 6, top 5 at least are among the runs this season. I would like to see others also get among the runs. And for Bangladesh, I think their batting lineup starts like at around 5 or 6 anyway. So I think they even if they're 20 for 3, 24 for 3, they can still get to a respectable total.
I
So
mean, you forgot Jeet's favorite batter, Mr. Shantu. Yaar, itna
that's what.
don't.
Yeah, I think Jeet will be able to throw a little more light on that. I don't know why he's his favorite, but but yeah. So yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, Jeet, all yours from here.
But just one thing before that, of course, in terms of how the Dutch batters have been batting, I just wanted to take this question, and I want Jeet to answer this because Akash has said, I reckon Vikramjeet's form has been a concern, and Taskin Ahmed has gotten his wicket twice until now. So I think Wesley Baresi should play in place of him. Cybrin can play a 3, and Baresi will play in the middle order. Ooh, that's matlab position maybe वहाँ पे change. Don't you think that's bit too much of a change, a bit too drastic a change?
Well, the one thing that is for sure is that no matter how many failures Vikramjeet has or any other batter in the current Dutch lineup has out of the playing 11, there is no way I would replace anybody with Papa Baresi. That is for sure. I'm not getting that guy into my playing 11. He's a backup wicketkeeper. Let him stay as a backup wicketkeeper. That's it. That's it for every game. He's been woefully out of touch for a very long time now. In fact, I was surprised that he also made it to the squad. With all due respect, I was very surprised. So no matter what happens, no matter how many low scores are registered by Vikramjeet, Baresi doesn't make it through in my playing 11.
Yeah, if they
All
really
right.
want to get in somebody for Vikramjeet, they have Sakib Zulfikar, decent middle order batter, plus has that leg spin which not many teams have. So I think he could be a good addition if Vikramjeet was to sit out.
Of course, completely agree there. Arhan, meanwhile, asking, are England and New Zealand pretty much knocked out? New Zealand, yes. England, you can't really say. England versus Oman, England versus Namibia will sort of go a long way in deciding or determining their fate. They would want to ensure they sort of, really give their NRR a proper boost. Given now that Hazelwood has gone on record saying, ki, should it come down to us not having to defeat Scotland, convincingly, we'll probably do that. मतलब भाई दैट फेरेरा फेरी से अक्षय कुमार जोर जोर से बोल के स्कीमें बता दी लोगों को
नहीं
लाइक
नहीं बोलना चाहिए था वो। चुपचाप कर लेता है यार।
बस पता नहीं वहां पे क्या होता है बट I don't think it's Indian bias over there, but interesting. He says Sakib Zulfikar's name is because of an Indian bias. Ek to, I don't think he's Indian, by the way. He's not
No,
Indian
he's
origin.
not. No,
He's,
no,
he's a
he's not.
Pakistani descent. An interesting fact about him: he's one of the triplets. He has 2 other brothers who
Oh,
all played for the
interesting.
Netherlands. So yeah.
So for more such trivia, follow cricket.com. And why is Aryan Dutt not getting a game? Sure, New York में जरूरत नहीं पड़ी, but now that they'll be playing a lot more in the Windies, Jeet, interesting shout out. Aryan Dutt could potentially come in.
Yeah, now is the chance when now is the time you'll start seeing all these changes and all these spinners also coming into the game a lot more because, of course, the focus now shifts to the Caribbean where the spin has been playing a larger part than it has in the USA. So Now you'll start seeing these kind of players also coming into the action. Maybe Aryan Dutt is one of the players that you'll actually see. A good shout.
But for Aryan Dutt to come in, who will sort of have to go out? Vivian Kingma?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
that's what I'm thinking.
Jeet's favorite again here. Kingma will miss out. Here, I
King
guess.
Maya potentially might miss out because they
All right.
have their pace attack fairly sorted. So they've got
Yeah.
Bas the lead also chipping in and Vikramjit as well if required. So
Fair point. One last question again from Akash itself. He does want to know more about Max Sherdahl. He's currently the 50th highest run scorer in T20 cricket. A bit unnecessary stat, to be honest, but he's the highest T20 run scorer for Netherlands. Of course, completely agree with you there. Do you think he should try to be a bit more aggressive as his career strike rate is only 112? This is something, I mean, we've spoken about not the strike rate per se, but the value he brings to the side. Jeet, let's start with you on this. Max showed out. Again, it's a lot more than just strike rate over there, right?
I'll tell you what, so he has been criticized a lot for batting slowly, but you need to understand that he's always had a partner who's been very aggressive. Now, be it Stefan Myberg, be it Tobias Fissy, and now Michael Levitt. He has always had that opening partner who's very aggressive, so he hasn't been required to play an aggressive knock. What he has done is he has anchored along, and that is what he's good at. Secondly, time and again, he has also found himself in a situation where the wickets are falling so quickly at the other end that he's always found himself rebuilding. So that also has required a very, very cautious approach. So I believe it's been a factor of both these things, having an aggressive opening partner and of course situation as well. And third game also being slightly more towards anchoring in the T20 format. And he's done that really well. So I wouldn't really want him to play that kind of a knock when something like this has already worked out for him.
Fair enough. Anyways, Bangladesh versus Netherlands. That game is happening at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time and it's coming live from St. Vincent. Cannot wait for that game to start sooner. The second game, of course, will be later tonight, 12:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time, and that is, of course, England versus Oman. That game is coming from Antigua. The third game over there. All other games have also been Group B fixtures, so Oman have played there before. Their game against Scotland happened here. But Pramod Bhai, again, start with you. England versus Oman. We know what's at stake for England. Oman probably will be playing for pride and also the 31,000 USD that they gain for every win they sort of secure in the World Cup. But how do you look at this?
Yeah, for Oman, of course, they have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose, so they can go all guns blazing right from the top, right from the start, I guess. But yeah, there is a bit of unfamiliarity factor when it comes to Oman. If you look at it from an Indian point of view, I know how much. I know based on they have only these three games to sort of look at to sort of see everybody's strength, weaknesses, they what sort of matchup. But for England, I think put runs on the board, like score about 180, 190, and get them all out for 100. This should be the way to go for England as far as I'm concerned. But for Oman, I feel this is a great chance. They've been in the games in all three occasions many times, like against Australia, Namibia, and even who did they play last? Scotland. They were in the game for some duration. It's all about extending that sort of control that they have for a longer periods, which is where they have failed. So it won't be easy against England because they have a lot more riding on this than Oman. So it could be an absolutely one-sided contest that we see later today.
I mean, we've all heard those cliches about wounded lions and whatnot, and definitely England will be hurting from the first two games, and they will want to sort of put up a show and a half if possible. They will again draw a leaf from how Scotland went about their business against Oman. They chased down 150 odd in 13 odd overs. Brandon McMullen there, sort of being the key for them. Expect something similar to happen tonight?
I'm not so hopeful because RK Bilyas has made no statement before this game, so I'm not too sure of Oman's chances. But anyway, jokes apart, I believe England will be having a very, very straightforward approach now going forward. Just win the toss, bowl first, look to restrict whether it's Oman or Namibia later on to like 70, 80 runs and just cap the chase off in 5, 6 overs because the equation is very, very straightforward. Points, of course, they will get it ideally or realistically, but it's all about the NRR, right? So they are in a fight with Scotland for the NRR potentially. So they want to put Scotland in a situation going into their final game, that is Scotland's final game, where they have to like win or ensure that they don't lose by a margin of say more than like 140 or 150, something like that, to make it very, very impossible for even Australia to, play the way that they are planning to play. So it's going to be a very straightforward approach. But having said that, on the flip side, they also run a risk by having that kind of an approach, and that is where Oman's chances are going to come. And that is where they need to capitalize this time, because previously they haven't capitalized the whatever chances they are getting, whether it's putting down the catches or not taking a couple of more wickets to put more pressure on the opponents. If they get these kind of chances again against England, because you know the brand of cricket they are going to play, then capitalize on them and seize those opportunities.
And yep, seize those opportunities for sure. Maybe Akib Ilyas might not have made any statement so far, but Ayan Khan has. He's definitely said that they will be looking to surprise England with their game. But Pramod भाई, आज तो मेरे बंदे को गेम मिलना चाहिए यार. फयाज बट को आज तो ले लो यार. कितना लेफ्ट आर्म स्पिनर्स खिलाओगे तुम लोग?
अरे
मतलब
मैंने थोड़ी ठेका ले रखा है ओमान का. If it was up to me,
कॉल करो डेवलपमेंट
if it
को,
was
बोलो कि भाई ये सब मत करो, ऐसा 3-3 नहीं चाहिए. You've got Ayan Khan and Zishan Matsur. Again, this is a conversation we've had in 2 previous Oman fixtures, but now at least tonight at least probably he deserves a spot.
Definitely, I think he's among. He should be. He always should be among Oman's. He is always amongst Oman's best 11 for sure. And yeah, it was surprising not having not seen him so far in the tournament. And yeah, against England, yeah, I mean, if you want to rattle and take them by surprise, as Ayan Khan says, so yeah, I think Fayaz Butt will be could be one of the ways to go. And I hope he gets a game today. I think he's a perfect partner for Bilal Khan as well. They've been doing it bowling together for years, so they complement each other well. Hopefully, we get to see that today.
But actually, this is the game where I would rather back Shakil Ahmed over Fayaz Butt against England with the new ball. I'm more than happy with Shakil Ahmed for this game. I was not happy with him in the previous games, but this is the game where he could actually succeed with his 110 kph orthodox deliveries for arm balls. I'd rather back him against Fayaz Butt, because England are going to blast out the pacers here.
This is why I wanted to actually come to you, because the only reason why you would want to hold on to him is that value with the new ball. Power play, he can definitely sort of be handy. But to be honest, Phil Salt, Josh Butler, I'd rather go to Fayaz Butt. Proven performer, जो भी है भाई, experience है, बंदे को समझ है कि क्या डालना. I don't know, Shakil can very easily get sort of pelted left, right, and center, and he might not have answers. I haven't seen him sort of enough to sort of know how will he perform under pressure, so I'm not sure of it. But even then, come on यार, एक गेम तो बनता है यार Fayaz Butt के लिए.
हाँ, लास्ट गेम उसके बाद वाला जो बचा होगा वो, कि नहीं बचे, लास्ट थोड़ी ना है ओमान का.
नहीं, यही लास्ट गेम है ना.
This is the last
one.
Yeah, play Shakil Ahmed. क्यों चाहिए Fayaz Butt? हो गया खत्म.
2026 T20 World Cup will be the next.
अरे कहाँ सुपर एट बनते तो फिर भी क्वालिफाइज है नेक्स्ट के लिए.
क्वालिफाइज में तो आ ही जाएंगे.
And if I'm not wrong, Shakil. Yep. And Shakil, Shakil played all 3 games. Na? I initially had the impression कि first game में कोई और खेला था and then Shakil replaced him. No, he's played all 3 games.
No,
if I'm not wrong.
All 3 games.
And, yep.
Everybody's going to get belted. That's for sure, because England's approach is going to be such. But there are higher chances of Shakil picking up wickets because of his pace than Fayaz Butt. अभी एक ही मैच बचा है, ठीक है. फयाज को बाद में देखना. इस मैच में let's stick with Shakil.
No, but to be honest, I've genuinely liked Fayaz, but I'm not even kidding. I've actually liked him,
so
which is
do
why
I.
I don't know, probably personal bias. Yeah.
So do I.
अरे एक बार तेरे को Instagram में रिप्लाई क्या कर दिया, पसंद आ गया तेरे को. I mean,
भाई एक तो मैसेज भी तभी क्या था जब मेरे को पसंद आया था पहले. सो चिकन एक सिचुएशन नहीं है, पहले पसंद आया फिर मैसेज किया. बट एक तो यू मेक इट साउंड इट सॉर्ट ऑफ मोर स्लीजी दैन नेसेसरी, बट ठीक है. Will there be rain in attendance for the Bangladesh-Netherlands game? No rain expected. 8 बजे का मैच है. I don't know, sorry if the person understands Hindi. It's an 8 p.m. start, IST. Let's hope it will start on time, it will end on time, and the Dutch also end up on the right side of the results there. Final thoughts, last question for both of you. Key players for both sides, because Oman again did put up a very good showing against Australia. Sure, different ground, different conditions, different opponents. Key players for both sides. Let's just stop it at that.
Okay. Key player for me Key player from Oman. I'll go with Akib Ilyas. He's other than the one performance in the press conference, he's actually shown. I think intent with the bat. 20. I think he scored 20 of 6 against in the last game and did okay against one of the teams, either Namibia or Australia, if I'm not wrong. So he will. Plus, of course, he bowls leg spin, off spin. So he's there, Liam Livingston. So maybe he can have a chat with him during the game or after the game. And from England, let me go with Jofra Archer. I just want to see him hit those short balls and hit the batsman. So I think I'm really looking forward to seeing what sort of the pace and and more importantly, will the wicket will support him. That's it'll be even better viewing of Jofra Archer. So yeah, those will be my two players.
Interesting names there. I was just trying to confirm Akib Ilyas this time around. क्या होगा भाई उसका? Because in the first 3 games, I know Namibia was a golden duck. Against Australia, he scored 18. And in the last game, I know Pratik got a 50, so it wasn't him. So Akib Ilyas is yet to come good for Oman this time around. So let's hope tonight is his day, of course. But Jeet, 2 names for you.
For Oman, it's a no-brainer, Shakil Ahmed. I expect him to come good in the power play. He might go for like 50 runs. I don't mind because everybody is going to go for 40 or 50 if England is batting first. But he might pick 3 wickets for all you know. And for England, I expect Reece Topley to play this particular game. And he's going to make England realize why he should have been in the playing 11 from game 1. So I expect Reece Topley to do well. And I also expect him to play. So, of course, terms and conditions apply.
For sure. We got a comment saying I'll go with Muncy, but why England Oman में Muncy क्या कर रहा है? कहाँ से खिला रहे हो आकाश? Jokes apart, I know he's probably referring to a Scotland game that's not happening tonight. Though, so जब भी Scotland का
I'm sure England will love having Muncy on this side for this game for sure.
Exactly, fair point. So Shakil and Reece Topley is what Jeet has gone for. Funnily enough, I'm going for Mark Wood because I don't think England are going to sort of change that. And Mark Wood's express pace is definitely something I don't see Oman being able to handle. Jofra would have been was another name I was contemplating, but Pramod Bhai went for Jofra, so I'm going for Mark Wood. I can sort of see Oman being tested and blown away by that express pace, 150, 145. It won't be easy tackling that. For Oman, I'm going with Pratik Katavle. Probably a bit of recency bias, but I really liked some of the shots he played in the last game. Naseem Khushi himself hasn't been in the greatest of form, so I don't know if they'll sort of once again change their opening combination to make it 4-4 and go with Kashyap Prajapati. But Pratik Katavle, I want to see more of him, so I'm just hoping he does well tonight. So those are the 2 names for me. And that's that from the second game of the day, which is happening at 12:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time. It's England taking on Oman. The game's coming live from Antigua. So, let's see what happens there. The third and the final game of the day that we have to review, of course, is Afghanistan taking on Papua New Guinea. It will be Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea's final group stage game. Afghanistan in all likelihood Afghanistan still have a game against West Indies. Sorry, I stand corrected. But it is, of course, Papua New Guinea's final group stage game. Gentlemen, let's start with that. That game's happening in Trinidad. The second game there, we saw the first game happen tonight. Jeet, let's start with you. Expectations, especially given how the surface played tonight or today. Kya lag raha hai?
Expectation is of the Afghan spinners running through PNG's batting order because we did see a lot of turn in the second innings. So Gudakesh Moti, of course, was a great exponent of that. So if the same thing continues, if it's the same track that is used, then I think it's going to be very similar. So Dew also didn't have a huge impact, which I thought it will. But of course, I mean, Afghanistan have spinners for the power play, middle overs, and depth as well. So I think they are going to run through PNG's batting order.
I mean, we've seen how PNG struggled against Akil Hussain, Pramod Bhai. Mujib is also there with him. And like Jeet mentioned, spin to hoega hi, but for me, spin with the new ball in particular is going to wreak havoc against PNG. How do you expect them or how do you think they can sort of handle Mujib over there? लगता है फिर से wicket जाएगा वहाँ पे?
Yeah, of course, definitely. I mean, they did put up a fight against West Indies in the first game, so I think that is something that through which they'll take some confidence into this game. But after what we saw against Uganda, right? I think they did, Uganda, right? Yeah. So I mean,
Yes.
it was like a good first one step forward and sort of two steps back for PNG, and Afghanistan. I think will be too good on the day. Maybe the match could very well be over in the power play, and not just the spinners, right? They have Fazalak Farooqi in superb form as well. So I mean, if he can get 2-3 wickets in his first 2 overs in the power play, and then you have Rashid and Azmat and Noor. Noor, I don't think even bowled against Uganda against one of them in the previous
one
game.
over.
Okay, so I think that'll pretty much be how the match will probably turn up tomorrow, with PNG offering a bit of glimmer of hope probably through one or two guys who can probably stick around and get those 20s and 25 probably. But other than that, their batting is a little bit shaky, and more importantly, Afghanistan are too good at bowling side to let PNG get anything substantial.
So this is also subject to Mujib's fitness because he missed the last game due to an injury. So if he comes back, then of course Noor goes out or somebody else goes out. But there is also a chance that Karote might play this game. Afghanistan might look to see what he can do with the left arm spin, orthodox spin that is.
Sorry, what was the name you took?
Karote.
Karoti, sorry, I lost you there. And in fact, that was the next question I was going to ask. Do you think Afghanistan could bring in Karoti? Because heard a lot of good things, haven't seen a lot, but clearly a guy that people rate highly, and people think could sort of do well for the Afghan national team as well. Do you think they could potentially try him out? Because nothing to be lost. It is PNG after all. You would sort of not mind experimenting over there. क्या लग रहा है वहाँ पे?
There are very strong chances. They might leave out one of the pace all-rounders, potentially Kareem Jannat. They've got a lot. They've got Gulbadi Naib, Azmatullah Omar Zai, Kareem Jannat, none of whom have bowled. So there's a good chance Jannat might go out and they might look to have Karote come in and see what he can do and offer with the left-arm orthodox spin. If Mujib is fit, all good. If not, then I think Noor Ahmed is going to continue as well. So let's see.
All right, fair enough. Before I get to Pramod Bhai Uday, will you guys be doing watch-alongs for other big games apart from India? Also, in the first round, we will be doing watch-alongs only for the India games. We'll be covering all the other games by means of these episodes of WhatsApp World Cup. That's how we've sort of planned it. Come the second round, we will be doing a watch-along every day at 8 p.m. So you don't have to worry, irrespective of who's playing whom. Every day, 8 p.m. sharp, we will show our asses in front of the cameras. We will be talking, reacting, and analyzing the game in front of us. So that will happen from the 19th of June till the 19th of June. Every day, 12 p.m., we'll go live where we discuss all the other games. And on India games, we will be doing a watch along. So that's how it's going to work. Meanwhile, the OG 7777, I'm not sure who is the OG 7777, goes on to say, do you guys have any idea about which teams can qualify as associate nations in the next edition of the World Cup, I'm assuming? Lots of love from Nepal. Thank you so much. Again, this is something we'd spoken about earlier. Those who qualify through to the Super 8 this time around get or secure a direct qualification to the next edition of the T20 World Cup. Baki, the road to T20 World Cup 2026 hasn't sort of been established yet, right, Pramod Bhai? Nothing concrete yet.
No, it hasn't, but yeah, there will be it qualifies, of course, across different regions: Asia, Americas, Pacific, and I think
Africa.
African, of course, African. So suppose if US sort of make it, sorry, if Netherlands make it through, if Scotland make it through, and so they will be, and the next, so top 8 is confirmed from there. So I think the next two highest ranked teams will then, I think, make it through, and the rest, of course, play the qualifiers from they make it through from their own region.
Yep, there you go. Just to clarify again, wait, so if England and Pakistan don't make it through to the Super 8, they have to play regional qualifiers. Top 8 teams.
They're the top 10 teams or top 12 teams anyway. There's a cutoff. I'm not sure when the cutoff date is. So if they are in the top 10, top 12 in that period, they get an automatic qualification.
Exactly. So basically, the seeding works like top 8 rankings plus those who've qualified from the last edition of the World Cup will make it through to the sort of next edition of the World Cup directly, which is why Netherlands also secured direct qualification this time around, because last edition they had qualified. So that's how it works. And then uske baad you sort of look at how who else has to play. So no, Pakistan, England, if they are ranked in the top 8, then they won't have to play the regional qualifiers. But I wouldn't mind seeing that happen. All right, so this is the question OG777 had. Okay, we'll get to this question at the end of our review. There's just one more game to go. Oh no, sorry, we are of course, bhai sahab,
We're done.
itne games. No, just final thoughts on Afghanistan PNG, of course. Games happening in Trinidad, so it's not been that uh, conducive to bowlers. Batters have had a bit of a say. PNG says some batters that you're looking forward to. We sort of had spoken about how Hiri probably can go out and Norman Vanwa can come in, but I don't think that was the change they made, right? Norman Vanwa came in place of someone else. Oh, that was the change they made. All right, so they're sticking to that
Maybe
11.
he continued.
That's
No,
fine.
no, there will be a
So
change, I believe. There will be a change. This is it PNG's? No, it's not the last year, right? It's a penultimate game. The
it is
last
their
game
last
being
game. It
against
is
New Zealand.
PNG's last game.
Arey, PNG
Oh,
has not played
sorry.
New Zealand yet, na?
New Zealand, right?
Sorry,
Last.
अरे तो दोनों का बचा
So
sorry दोनों के second last games है.
So, yeah, potentially, maybe if they probably look to add Kabua Moria again, then that is one of the changes I expect. I don't see how Semo Kamea is going to get a nod for this game. Maybe last game, but this game, I think, if they want to make a change, it will be Kabua Moria. But besides that, I don't see any changes.
Correct. So that was the change they made. Moria went out and Manwa replaced him in the 11. But fair shout now, Pramod bhai. Kabua Moria should play. I mean, given that how he's bowled, left arm angle, different variety and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, left arm angle does create a little bit of doubt in the batter's mind. But I think Norman Manua, I think he can bat anywhere in the top four. I mean, between 4 and say 7 or 8. I think he fits in anywhere in that lineup. So I would just based on that, I would just give Vanua a bit of the edge. But I think they have a left arm seamer already in the 11, don't they? They have. Oh, they don't actually. Okay.
They don't.
Moria ही है ना?
By the way,
Yeah.
that reminds me that there were two changes. Even John Carrico had gone out,
Yeah,
right? So there were two changes.
John
Carrico
Carrico.
didn't play the last game. Did he play the last game? I don't think he played the last game.
PNG's last game was against West Indies, na?
No.
Not
They
West Indies.
played
West
Uganda.
Indies
They
was their
played
first.
Uganda.
So I don't think Carrico played that. There were two changes then, I believe.
I'd be very surprised if John Carrico. I mean, if it's unless it's injury or something like that. All right, I'll just confirm on that. In the meantime, we'll take this question. Mohammad Arhan going on to ask, how is Kenya cricket doing lately? They were giant killers in the early 2000s. Pramod bhai.
No, Kenya cricket, they're doing okay. They were part of these African qualifiers recently. I mean, since you talk about the 2000s, will be. I mean, you should note that Colin Soboya, who played in the 2003 World Cup, just recently retired after Kenya failed to make it through to the World Cup. I think they finished the fourth, if I'm not wrong, in the African qualifiers behind Namibia, Uganda, Zimbabwe. So they are still very much there in terms of trying and qualifying for the World Cup, but their quality is not as good as it was, say about 20-25 years ago. So that's why they're nowhere close to playing the World Cup for now.
And thankfully, Carrico played 4 overs, none for 18. No wickets taken though, but he did play. Like I said, really like what I'd seen of him. So fingers crossed. Aaj bhi khelega, of course, banda, unless injuries, of course. So no changes unless Kabua Moria could come in. But who replaces? Who does he replace? Not Norman Manua for sure. Hiri
No.
again. Now it has to be.
Hiri, potentially, yeah, because Hiri hasn't chipped in with the ball either. And with the bat, I think he's got one fair chance. So that's the only spot that's really open right now. Otherwise, I don't see how Moria could come in place of any other players.
All right, so there you go. And those were the names. And let's see what happens tonight. Of course, that game is happening live or rather, that game will be coming live from Trinidad and happens at 6 a.m. Indian Standard Time tomorrow morning. We'll just take a couple of comments before we wrap this episode of What's Up World Cup. So yeah, he was of course, he or she was of course asking us about teams that could potentially become full member nations in the near future. So any names you want to take, Scotland, Netherlands, the likes, definitely knocking on the door.
Yeah, of course, Scotland, Netherlands have been knocking on the door for some time, but yeah, it's not like in terms of, even if you get full, you've seen what's happened with Ireland, for instance. They've had full membership for like 7 years now almost, and they've and if anything, their game has gone down and down and down over the last few years, except few moments of probably good showing. So, I mean, doesn't when you get the test status, it doesn't naturally guarantee that you will get better as a team. But yeah, there's still based on I don't know what, because earlier they used to have these not test championship. What were they called? The intercontinental cups. I think to determine who gets tested. Now you
Yeah.
have no second.
Yeah.
Now you have no second tier sort of long format games these associate nations can play, and where they can sort of test themselves out as to where they stand in first class cricket, or those 4 days, 5 days game. So there's no real basis on which any team can really get associate status as of now, in my opinion.
Also, are there any fixed criteria that need to be fulfilled by by these nations? I remember going through a few of them just the other week. They need to qualify for at least 3 editions of the World Cup in the last 7 years. Things like there were like a few criteria with and they should have beaten full member nations. So there are certain boxes that need to be picked, and apart from that, of course, there's also voting process or something on those lines that happen. Jahan pe then they decide ki boss. So a lot of gatekeeping. Basically, there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens, which is why we've not seen too many nations become full member cricketing nations. But let's hope that changes in due course, because Netherlands and Scotland have definitely been leaps and bounds ahead of Ireland, if I have to put it bluntly, because Ireland have been nowhere close to sort of being able to do something off note in this edition. So yeah, I mean, that's that in terms of that question at least. And last question, Sujan Adhikari goes on to ask, hello sir, if Nepal wins against Bangladesh, Nepal will directly qualify for the next World Cup. Unfortunately, won't be that straightforward, Sujan. They have to qualify for the next round. Only then will they be sort of directly qualifying for the next edition of the World Cup. As much as Bangladesh is a tough opponent, just defeating them alone won't do any good. It will earn you a few bucks.
They have to beat both Bangladesh and South Africa to qualify for the next round, thereby confirming their place in the 2026 edition, I guess.
Exactly. So that's that. And anyways, now it is time for us to wrap this episode of What's Up World Cup. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and getting all chatty. And like we spoke about the giveaway, wait for the live stream to end and tune in, or rather key in your answers in the main comment section. Let's see who will be the lucky winner this time around. It's a goodbye from all of us right now. And let's hope the correct team, or the team that we all want, wins.